Our Zoom runner will now begin the recording. Let us worship.
Art thou troubled? Music will calm thee. Art thou weary? Rest shall be thine. Rest shall be thine. Music, source of all gladness, heals thy sadness at her shrine. Music, music ever divine. Music, music calleth with voice divine. When the welcome spring is smiling, and the flowers of earth beguiling, after winter's weary rain, sweetest music doth attend her heavenly harmonies, doth lend her, chanting praises in her train, chanting praises in her train. Art thou troubled? Music will calm thee. Art thou weary? Rest shall be thine. Rest shall be thine. Music, source of all gladness, heals thy sadness at her shrine. Music, music ever divine. Music, music calleth with voice divine.
This morning, we would like to extend an especially warm welcome to those of you who might be joining us for the first time. We're very glad that you're here. Our greeter today, Anne, is dropping our connection card into the chat box if you'd like to complete that and connect with our community. This caring and supportive community has a pastoral care committee who works closely with our minister to provide support, care, and a listening ear. Please fill out that pastoral care card being dropped into the chat box if you would like the care team or Reverend Laura to reach out to you. You can also find a link to that on our website. Our online services are intergenerational, and we have a religious exploration program whose director, Rebecca Britt, is happy to hear from you. Her email is going to be dropped into the chat box now as well. Beyond that, there's always a lot happening here at South Valley, and the Happenings weekly newsletter is a concise, up-to-the-minute way to stay connected. Lori Quigley's email is now in the chat box if you'd like to reach out to her to receive those emails. We're also active on Facebook and have an event calendar on our website. Just one quick announcement as well. This coming Wednesday for the inauguration, Reverend Laura will have a Zoom room open from 10 to 11, and you're welcome to join that to just talk about what's going on, share concerns, joys, hopefully, and anything else you'd like to talk about as well.
I have just one announcement. I'll just wait for the spotlight to come over to me. Excellent. I'm very pleased to share with the community this morning that we will be starting with small group ministry here at South Valley. We will have 4 sessions starting in February. And Soul Matters is, as you may be aware, the sort of subscription service that we subscribe to for our monthly themes. And our small ministry groups will be following along with those themes. We have 3 facilitators who are eagerly awaiting your interest and sign up. We have Ann Scarborough, Brenda Voisard, and Brenda Thomas, who will be co-leading the small group. They will be meeting on the 4th Saturday of the month from 10 to 12. And we're only going to have the one group as a pilot project this winter and spring for us to try out this new format, with the hope that if it takes off, we'll have more groups start up again in the fall. If you're interested in learning more about this small group, please send me an email, and one of our facilitators will be in touch with you. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this goes. So thank you very much. Back to you, Zach.
Thank you. We're now going to take a moment to share the warmth of community with one another. We will say hello to one another and then say our chalice lighting words together. They will be in the chat box. If you have a candle or a chalice, please light it with us as we say those words in a moment. But first, sharing the warmth of community.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So good to be with you all.
Hi.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Hello, Keith.
Morning.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Good morning, everybody.
Always enjoy everyone's background.
Good
morning, everyone.
Morning.
There.
Okay, if I can just get that to go away. All right, that's as good as I can do. Why won't that go away?
Where's the sound?
All right. Now if you'll all join me. We light this chalice for the warmth of love,
Love, for the light
of
Bit of
truth,
truth and for the
energy
of action.
action.
Get that on.
All right. Good
Can't
morning.
just leave and go do something fun.
I'm Elena Hendricks, and I
It's
am
just
a
like
member
you go to
of
church,
the
you
Board
don't
of
leave it.
Trustees here at South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. My pronouns are she and her. Come, whoever you are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter your gender, whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, You are welcome here. You are welcome here, whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears in your eyes. You are welcome here. No matter what you have experienced in the past, no matter what awaits you in the future, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God all of the time, or some of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. This is a community of open minds, loving hearts, and willing hands. You are welcome here at South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society.
Good morning, everyone. Again, I am the Reverend Laura Young, and my pronouns are she and her. It has been quite a beginning to 2021, and I hope you all are holding on and reaching into communities of care and support as we find our way through what is seeming to be a continuation of tumultuous times. This week, we will be celebrating the inauguration of a new president, and it comes right on the heels of this weekend, in which we honor and celebrate the legacy and the work of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This morning, all of our music and all of our spoken word is solely by African American and people of color in honor of our desire and our insistence on decentering whiteness as a congregation. The call to worship that I've picked for you this morning is a spoken poetry poem entitled Dear White America, and it's written and performed by Denez Smith, and I'll start that in a moment for you. But just a word for a moment about Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. It's really important as we embrace and explore the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King that we remember that during his lifetime, he was one of the most unpopular people in America. And it's all too easy in our time and place now to idolize and to forget that difficult history, that he was a man who broke boundaries. He was a man who feared arrest and was arrested many, many times. And he and his other justice workers were imprisoned, they were beaten, they were threatened on a daily basis. And that is a rough and difficult truth that continues in our current time and place. In some ways, we just must remember not to whitewash, quite literally, our history as we move forward in this difficult time in which we are making real progress on racial justice issues. So without more than that, let me just share this poem by Denez Smith with you. Dear White America.
Dear white America, I've left Earth in search of darker planets, a solar system that revolves too near a black hole. I left a patch of dirt in my place and many of you won't know the difference. Give it my name if it makes you feel better while you run your hands through its soiled scalp. I've left in search of a new God. I do not trust the God you have given us. My grandmother's hallelujah is only outdone by the fear she nurses each time the blood-fat summer swallows another child who used to sing in the choir. Take your God back. Though his songs are beautiful, his miracles are inconsistent. I want the fate of Lazarus for Anisha. I want Chucky, Bo, Mo, Sean, Islan, Trayvon risen 3 days after their entombing. Their ghosts regifted flesh and blood. Their flesh and blood regifted their children. I have left Earth. I am equal parts sick of your go back to Africas as I am your I just don't see races. Neither did the poplar tree. We did not build your boats, though we did leave a trail of kin to guide us home. We did not build your prisons, though we did, and we fill them too. We did not ask to be part of your America, though are we not America? Her bones brittle and dragging a ripped gown through Oakland. I will not stand your ground. I am sick of calling this recklessness the law. Each night I count my brothers, and in the morning, when some do not survive to be counted, I count the holes they leave. Your master magic trick, America. Now he's breathing, now he don't. Abracadabra, white bread voodoo. Your rope burned hands, tired of the noose. Hand my cousin a pistol to do your work. I tried, white people. I tried to love y'all, but you spent my brother's funeral making plans for brunch, talking too loud next to his bones. You took one look at the river plump with the body of boy after sweet boy and asked, why does it always have to be about race? Because you made it that way. Put an asterisk next to my sister's gorgeous face. Call her pretty for a black girl, because black girls go missing without a whisper of where, because there are no Amber Alerts for the amber skinned girls, because Jordan boomed, because Emmett whistled, because Huey P spoke it, because Martin preached it, because black boys have always been too loud to live, because it's taken my father's time, my mother's time, my aunts and my uncle's time, my sisters and my brother's time. How much time do you want for your progress? I have left Earth and I won't stop until I find a place where my kin can be safe, until black people ain't but people the same color as the good wet earth, until that means something. Until then, I bid you well, I bid you war, I bid you our lives to gamble with no more. I have left Earth and I am touching everything you beg your telescopes to show you, giving the stars their right names in this New Testament, this new story you cannot see or touch or ruin this, if only this one is ours. Dear white America.
Okay, here we are back in our sanctuary. I know that that was a lot of emotion to take in just now. I just invite you just to breathe and to settle and to find your good grounding. Let us sing. Number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere. Okay, looks like we're having a little trouble with the audio here. Let me restart that for us. Well, it looks like it's not going to play, so we can just imagine that we sang that whole song and move on to the next piece, which is our Time for All Ages with Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to share this with you. Oh, one moment. Gotta make sure to share audio because we're gonna have some great audio. This is Walking in the Wind. It's a time for all ages that I adapted from one done by Karen G. Johnston, which was adapted from a story from John Lewis's memoir. This is a true story that comes to us from John Lewis, a great leader in this nation who died in July 2020. He was a very important civil rights activist and served 12 terms in the United States House of Representatives. Many people were sad to lose him and thankful for what he has done to bring about justice in our nation. He lived a full and long life, asking of himself and asking of all of us to show up for justice, to do what we can, just a little bit more, to make sure that there was more fairness in our country. John Lewis grew up in a large family, and he would spend time with his aunts and uncles, with his cousins and siblings. There were many children in the neighborhood, and they would play together. This was before the pandemic, so they could actually be together. Mr. Lewis tells about a time when he was playing outside his aunt's house with about 14 other children when a big, big storm arrived. The kind of storm that made him feel very afraid. Here's a video of Mr. Lewis talking about that story.
Through the tin roof and count the stars.
John Lewis's autobiography, Walking with the Wind, he wrote about a dramatic moment in his childhood as a metaphor for making America a better place. Take a look.
I had an aunt by the name of Seneva, and Aunt Seneva lived in a shotgun house. Sometimes when it would rain, she would take a bucket, a pail, or a tub to catch the rainwater. At night, sometimes you can look up through the ceiling of the house, through the tin roof, and count the stars. Well, on this particular Saturday afternoon, we were out playing in her dirt yard, and an unbelievable storm came up. The wind started blowing, the thunder started rolling, the lightning started flashing. And she suggested that we all should get inside of her old shotgun house. She suggested that we all should hold hands. The wind continued to blow, the thunder continued to roll, the lightning continued to flash, and the rain continued to beat on this old house. My aunt became terrified. She started crying, and all of us, young children, we started crying. We thought this old house was going to blow away. And when one corner of this old house appeared to be lifted from its foundation, we would walk to that corner, trying to hold this house down with our little bodies. When the other corner appeared to be lifted, we would walk to that corner, trying to hold this house down with our little bodies. We were little children walking with the wind. We never left the house. We must never leave the house today. We must try to hold the American house together and create one house, one family. The American house, the American family.
Can you imagine what it was like to be inside of that house, afraid that it might all fall apart from the destructive force of the wind and the rain and the whole storm? I'm so glad John Lewis wasn't alone and he was there with his friends and family. I'm so glad they figured out a way to work together. When John Lewis was much older and was writing down the story of his life, he wrote these words. More than half a century has passed since that day, and it has struck me more than once over the many years that our society is not unlike the children in that house, rocked again and again by the winds of one storm or another. The walls around us at times seem as if they might fall apart. It seemed that way in the 1960s. At the height of the civil rights movement, when America itself felt as if it may burst at the seams. So much tension, so many storms. But the people of conscience never left the house. They never ran away. They stayed, they came together, and they did the best they could, clasping hands and moving toward the corner of the house that was the weakest. And then another corner would lift, and we would go there. And eventually, inevitably, the storm would settle, and the house would still stand. But we knew another storm would come, and we would have to do it all over again. And we did. And we still do, all of us, you and I, children holding hands, walking with the wind. Thank you for listening to Mr. John Lewis's words and his story.
Thank you, Rebecca, for bringing us that really timely and important story about staying in the house, staying in this country, and working for that vision of a better world that we know is possible, but seems tenuous at best in times of turmoil. And
This community, our church, and its many ministries are only made possible by the gifts that you give of your time, your talent, and your treasure. Many of you pledge monthly to support our work, and for this, we're very grateful. Your gifts help to ensure that we are able to live our values of love and justice in the world outside. Part of our ministry at South Valley includes sharing our Sunday worship offerings with a charitable organization that aligns with our principles and values. Your gift today will support the work of South Valley and the Crossroads Urban Center's Emergency Fund. This fund is helping those struggling to meet rent and utility payments during these difficult economic times. Crossroads is a nonprofit, multi-faith, community-based economic justice organization that was established in 1966. It's a grassroots organization that assists low-income Utahns, those with disabilities, and people of color to meet basic survival needs and to address essential issues affecting their stability and quality of life. Please give generously. South Valley uses Givelify to collect online donations during worship. You're invited to use the link that's been included in the chat box, or you can go to your phone and download the app. Thank you for your generosity and dedication to justice and love. At this moment, we'd like to put our offering words in the chat box. Anne has put those there, and you're invited to say those words along with me. We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together, we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for its soul, for the children of our children, Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for its soul. For the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom. Circle round for peace. For all of us imprisoned. Circle for release. Circle for the planet. Circle for its soul. For the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
For all that we have received and all that we have found the courage to give, may we be truly thankful. May these gifts be a blessing on South Valley and the Crossroad Urban Center's Emergency Relief Fund. At this time, I invite you to enter into a space of meditation, reflection, and prayer. If you're comfortable with closing your eyes, I invite you to do that. Settle deeper into your chair, into the corner of your space, and breathe just for a moment with me. There is so much that is causing tension in our bodies these days, and it can feel difficult to open up and to breathe deeply. So I'd like to just share with you a very short meditation and breathing technique. It involves just breathing in and out deeply from the bottom of the belly and moving that breath up through the body until you're breathing into the back of the rib cage. So just breathe here now and feel that breath in the bottom of your trunk. Push that belly button out, letting go of all of those social norms that tell you not to let that belly hang out. Notice those sounds in your immediate environment, perhaps a bird or the hum of a heater. And deepen your breath again. Breathing is what makes life possible. Breathe now into the bottom of your rib cage. Expanding that breath up and through the middle of the rib cage. Breathe now to that center space of the heart. First to the front of the heart space. Now to the middle of the heart space. And now see if you can breathe into the back of the rib cage, the back of the heart. Supporting those shoulder blades in the back of the neck with your breath now. Allowing that breath to then move up through the neck and the throat, into the head, to the back of the head and the crown of the head and the forehead. And filling the whole of the body with your breath one more time. From the bottom of your toes and your heels to the top of your head. Noticing that the inside space, the space underneath your skin, belongs to you. And you belong to yourself. And so ends our meditation today.
It was really nice having a chance to just breathe with you all. It's really wonderful to just have that feeling return when just knowing that no matter what's happening around us or within us, we can always return to that breath. Our reading today comes from a personal favorite of mine, a man by the name of James Baldwin, who's sadly not with us anymore. If you're not familiar with James Baldwin, he was a really prolific author and activist, deeply involved in the civil rights movement, and just a really powerful voice for justice. This video that I'm about to share with you comes from a film titled I Am Not Your Negro, which was the title of the final book that James Baldwin was working on and unfortunately didn't finish before he passed. And I'm also going to just share a link right now in the chat box. It's a really powerful film, and I encourage you to take a look at it if you have a chance sometime this week or whenever you're able to. But with that, I'd like to share the video. Oops, sorry. Just let me make sure I'm sharing the right thing here.
I would like to add someone to our group here. Professor Paul Weiss, a Sterling Professor of Philosophy at Yale. Were you able to listen to the show backstage?
I heard a good deal of it, but then I was behind the rostrum here.
Yes.
so I heard only some of it.
Did you hear anything that you disagreed with?
I disagreed with a great deal of it. And of course, there's a good deal I agree with. But I think he's overlooking one very important matter, I think. Each one of us, I think, is terribly alone. He lives his own individual life. He has all kinds of obstacles in the way of religion or color or size or shape or lack of ability. And the problem is to become a man.
But what I was discussing was not that problem, really. I was discussing the difficulties, the obstacles, the very real danger of death thrown up by the society when a black man attempts to become a man.
All this emphasis upon black man and white does emphasize something which is here, but it emphasizes it or perhaps exaggerates it, and therefore makes us put people together in groups which they ought not to be in. I have more in common with a black scholar than I have with a white man who's against scholarship. And you have more in common with a white author than you have with someone who's against all literature. So why must we always concentrate on color or on religion or this? There are other ways of connecting men.
I'll tell you this. When I left this country in 1948, I left this country for one reason only, one reason. I didn't care where I went. I might have gone to Hong Kong, I might have gone to Timbuktu. I ended up in Paris, on the streets of Paris, with $40 in my pocket on the theory that nothing worse could happen to me there than had already happened to me here. You talk about making it as a writer by yourself. You have to be able then to turn off all the antenna with which you live, because once you turn your back on this society, you may die. You may die. And it's very hard to sit at a typewriter and concentrate on that if you're afraid of the world around you. The years I lived in Paris did one thing for me. They released me from that particular social terror, which was not the paranoia of my own mind, but a real social danger visible in the face of every cop, every boss, everybody. I don't know what most white people in this country feel, but I can only include what they feel from the state of their institutions. I don't know if white Christians hate Negroes or not, but I know that we have a Christian church which is white and a Christian church which is black. I know, as Malcolm X once put it, it's the most segregated hour in American life is high noon on Sunday. That says a great deal for me about a Christian nation. It means that I can't afford to trust most white Christians and certainly cannot trust the Christian church. I don't know whether the labor unions and their bosses really hate me. That doesn't matter, but I know I'm not in their unions. I don't know if the real estate lobby is anything against black people, but I know the real estate lobbies keep me in the ghetto. I don't know if the Board of Education hates black people, but I know the textbooks they give my children to read and the schools that we have to go to. Now, this is the evidence. You want me to make an act of faith, risking myself, my wife, my woman, my sister, my children, on some idealism which you assure me exists in America, which I have never seen.
I never said that.
So ends our reading for today.
Thank you, Zach. That video has always moved me as well. My former hometown of Santa Barbara, California, is a community known for its many parades. There's a parade for every major holiday, every national day of observance, a parade at summer solstice, a parade for the dog lovers, a parade for the children at Halloween, and many, many others along the way for various fundraisers and good causes. The biggest and the most important of all of these, though, are the three parades held during Fiesta, or Old Spanish Days. This local festival, held each August on the Wednesday following the first full moon of the month, is a celebration of the town's Spanish roots. During Fiesta, Santa Barbara is transformed by an influx of 8 to 10 million people arriving to celebrate the town's founders over 5 days. It begins with opening ceremonies at the courthouse, hosted by El Presidente, and from there includes the aforementioned 3 parades, daily rodeos, tours of local historic sites, flamenco dancing performances, and mariachi music on every street corner. There is also a tradition of confetti eggs, known as cascarones, and you are allowed during Fiesta to crack them on the head or the body of perfect strangers as you walk by. My son took great delight in this the year that he was 10, when he perfected the art of the surprise attack. At one point, surprising a young woman at a local cafe, drinking coffee with her friends, who he had picked especially because her hair was long and blonde, and he felt the confetti would stick particularly well. Luckily for all of us, and given the relaxing of norms that surround Fiesta, all laughed heartily and well in response. Fiesta is indeed a wild and holy time of local pride in Santa Barbara that I almost always avoided during the 20 years that I lived there. And not just because I'm not a fan of drunken tourists littering the streets and yelling. I avoid it because Fiesta romanticizes colonialism and the genocide of the native Chumash people as much as it lifts up Spanish culture. Of course, there's lots to love about the music and the dancing, the parades, the costumes, and the food. But there is little awareness or acknowledgement of the underside of colonialism and the very real ways that the difficult and complex history of the area continue to shape policies and attitudes. For while the Chumash people have inhabited the land we now call Santa Barbara for 13,000 years, their history is only barely discernible. There are a few streets with Chumash names: Anacapa, Anapamu, Valerio. And the local elementary schools are beginning to do a little bit better job of being more inclusive of local Chumash history. However, the pillars of fourth grade California history continue to be the establishment of the Catholic mission system and visits to local presidios or military offices at the very heart of the Santa Barbara Colonial Project. In 2016, I went to Fiesta for the first time in many years because we were hosting a Japanese exchange student, and our participation and attendance were obligatory. It was that year that I took my first official tour of the Santa Barbara Courthouse, a place I had visited many times for its beautiful sunken gardens, stunning architecture, and fantastic views of the city. The tour makes a stop in the historic mural room, which depicts what I will call the myth of the founding of Santa Barbara, the arrival of the Spanish and the uncontested acceptance by unclothed Chumash people of their new rulers, followed by the founding of California as a state in the Union. When I examined it on my tour, I was overcome by such sadness and anger that I had to excuse myself and leave Fiesta altogether. Erased by this festival and the mural room and the traditions built up in Santa Barbara is the imprisonment, the enslavement, and the forced conversion of the Chumash to their colonizers' politics, religion, and culture. Erased is the stealing of the land cultivated, managed, and held as sacred by the Chumash for 13 millennia. And erased is the struggle by the Chumash to regain sovereignty of the land, recover from the trauma of cultural genocide, and to demand and shape a reckoning for wrongs endured on their own terms, not just what city planners and government officials think is fair and or doable. And yet to suggest such things during the week of Fiesta is to find oneself very much alone, because everyone knows how fun Fiesta is and how it's been going on for over 100 years and how much revenue is involved, not just for the hotels and the restaurants, but also for the many, many low-income, mostly undocumented Latino families who depend on the revenue they earn from the handmaking and selling of the thousands of cascarones. Disruption of the narrative and its many strands is very complicated and it's messy, but avoiding the disruption of these narratives only perpetuates the harm and further entrenches colonized thinking among the local white population. And while I doubt that Fiesta will change its stance easily or soon, I can share that there are some signs that the generations-long advocacy is bearing some fruit. Earlier this year, there was a small sign of progress. A street name changed on the east side of Santa Barbara from Indio Muerto, or the dead Indian, to Hutash, the Chumash name for Mother Earth. Why it took so long is a mystery. And recently, a statue of Junipero de Serra, a Catholic priest known for his cruelty that he documented himself in his own journals, which was denied by the Catholic Church for more than 200 years, was finally removed in Ventura, just south of Santa Barbara. So there are some small signs that advocacy is working, but there is still so much work to be done. And that is a truth that we cannot escape in this time and in this context as we move into this new year that is already fraught with tension. Now, when I left Santa Barbara, I was only beginning to learn what solidarity looks like on the ground. I know that this community of South Valley has already been exploring the work of solidarity with local First Nation original peoples. And I hope that in time, in the months and the years to come, we can continue this work and that you will share the lessons learned along the way with me. Because we know that change only happens when we show up and we do the hard work, the introspection and the compassion training that is required for us to have a change of heart long before we get to action. I know already in my short time with you here at South Valley that this is a community that is committed to showing up for justice. And this winter and spring, we'll be taking some new steps in that direction. We'll be undertaking a series of conversations, study groups, and training designed to open us up and get us talking more boldly about who we are called to be when it comes to justice work, racial justice work, and anti-racist stances. Your board of directors will be reading and discussing the policy recommendations handbook published by the Unitarian Universalist Association's Commission on Institutional Change. And over time, the board will be bringing forth recommendations on changes to governance to consider as we seek to dismantle white supremacy culture as an institution. Our young adult group and the social action team will be co-sponsoring attendance for 10 members to attend a denomination-wide anti-racism training on February 27th. Be sure to look in happenings for the announcements about how to sign up for that. And your worship team is actively engaged in exploring how to make our services more inclusive, respectful, and vibrant examples of a heart wide open theology that decenters whiteness and welcomes all people of goodwill. And these are just 3 examples of many other efforts that are beginning to take root and bear fruit here at South Valley as we continue this path of exploring what anti-racism looks like as our community. And let me be clear, there is no rush in this work, in the sense that we're not going to force changes prematurely. Rather, we're going to engage deeply in reflection and then action, and more reflection and more action. Because the outcomes we seek are changes of heart, changes of practice, and changes of habit, such that in time we become the people we are called to be. One of the first steps that I hope we can undertake today and going forward is truth-telling. Because without this, there cannot be a ground for safety and trust to grow. And our efforts to produce justice-rich changes cannot flourish on ground that is not prepared to nourish it for the long term. In the narrative forming out of the insurrection at the Capitol a week ago, there has been a frequent refrain that claims that this is not who we are, and this is not the America that I know and love, but my friends, it is who we are. The evidence is all around us, and this is not an opinion. It's a statement based on observable fact, documented and observable facts. We are a racist, sexist, anti-intellectual, culturally Christian Western society built on the lie of our own exceptionalism and manifest destiny. Ask any person of color and they will likely tell you that the events on January 6th, while shocking and upsetting, are not aberrations or betrayals of our character. People of color recognize the attitudes, the postures, the symbols, and the hateful facial expressions of every rioter in that crowd as an extreme example of their everyday experience of living in fear of violence and harm. Let us not forget that niceness is often a cover for ugliness. We are a community called to kindness and compassion, not to niceness or to civility. And we must unlearn the lessons of civility and niceness that hide those pieces of our culture and our society that we would really rather not acknowledge or address as people of faith. We must cease right now and forever forward to participate in that cultural narrative that this isn't who we are. It's one of our worst habits as Americans. Our collective belief in our own exceptionalism and prowess is hurting so many, too many bodies in this nation, all of them American. We must cease and instead tell the real truth, that racial injustice and suffering is both completely avoidable and imminently solvable. This is a truth that is also easily observable and well documented. When we undertake changing policies and practices that shift towards anti-racist stances that are proactive and empowering, rather than neutral or passive, systems change and outcomes that were previously harmful disappear. The Black Lives Matter movement has been successful in getting police reform bills before state and national bodies that will reduce harm and produce more equitable outcomes. And we can add our voices to this work in the next few weeks by calling our representatives and letting them know we support reforms that save lives and decrease suffering. Our role as Unitarian Universalists is to develop ourselves and our communities in response to the revelation of truths as best we can, so that we can fulfill both the premise and the promise of a faith tradition that calls us to show up for love and justice. And we have an opportunity as a movement and a congregation to walk deeper into this work in the coming months. In addition to the efforts that I previously mentioned, we also have the opportunity to consider adopting a new 8th principle to our existing 7, a statement that explicitly calls us to anti-racist stances that are inherent and implicit in the other 7. Some of you may be surprised that we could add a principle, but I will remind you that we were not always a movement of principles. And in the beginning of the founding of our Unitarian and Universalist denomination as a combined denomination, there were but 6. And then there were 7. And now there may be 8. The 8th principle comes to us from the recognition that we need something that is explicitly anti-racist to guide our hearts and our practices and our faith as we go forward. According to Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, or BLUU, BLUE as it is called, Quote, the eighth principle came from a feeling that we need something to renew our commitment to this work, to hold ourselves accountable and to fulfill the potential of our existing principles. Blue and other advocates for racial justice within our movement note that while we have much to be proud of as Unitarian Universalists when it comes to commitments to justice, we continue to have work to do. Given our national history of chattel slavery, Jim Crow, and the mass incarcerations of Black people, police brutality, and recent Supreme Court rulings that have undermined voting rights, also known as the new Jim Crow, explicitly engaging in anti-racism work is critical if we hope to remain relevant as a faith tradition. The authors of the eighth principle call us to understand that just as we transformed our systems to be more inclusive of women and the LGBTQ+ community and differently abled folks, we can do the same with our siblings of color. We already know that we can do this work, and we are doing it again and again. This time with an explicit focus on what it takes to heal racial oppression systematically for the good of the whole. Our eighth principle as proposed reads as thus, quote, we, the member of the congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by building a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Over the next few months, we'll be exploring this eighth principle and what it might mean if we were to adopt it here at South Valley. This is not an engagement we will be rushing through. Rather, my hope is that we will be thoughtful, truthful, and considerate of diverse perspectives, and that when the time is right, we will embrace what is best for all of us as a unified community. There seems no better time than now to acknowledge more boldly that love is the force that weaves us together and calls us to fulfill our humanity anew. Our work is yet still undone, but I am very much looking forward to the journey ahead with each and all of you. May these words today find root in your heart, and may that which needs to find blossom come forth with compassion and joy. May we engage in this work with the whole of ourselves and the whole of our community, trusting that we will find our way, perhaps tenuously at first, but in time more boldly and more thoroughly, so that we create that world which we know is possible in the here and in the now. May you be well, and may it be so. Amen. Our closing hymn today is number 1064, one of our favorites, Blue Boat Home.
Still my dry land heart and say,
That song will always be a favorite of mine, for sure. All right, everyone. At this time, Anne is going to put our chalice extinguishing words into the chat box. Right now, you're invited to unmute yourselves, stand in body or in spirit, and say our chalice extinguishing words together. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of community, the light of truth, or the energy of action. We hold each other in our hearts until we meet again.
Lighted my candle.
Here is our final prelude. Our final postlude is called Ella's Song.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black men, black mothers, sons is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers, sons. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light just to shine on me. I need to be just one in the number as we stand against tyranny. To me, young people come first. They come first. They have the courage where we fail. If I can just shine a light on as they carry us through the gale. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. cannot rest until it comes.
As you go forth this week, may the words of the prophetic voices of our singers, our prophetic leaders from the BIPOC community ring true and strong in your ears and your hearts, causing new awareness to spread from you to the rest of the world and from the world into your heart. Do not be restful, instead be restless for freedom. May we all be well and take good care of one another and engage in the good fight and in the good struggles, so that we may bring forth that justice and equity we know is possible in our world. My blessings upon you, blessings within you from one to another. May you be well in body, mind, and spirit. Go forth now in peace.